All right, this is assignment 2 for technical and tactical, and it's called Assessing Technical and Tactical Ability. So it's released on Monday, the 11th of April, and it's due back in on the 29th of April. Okay, so it's covering learning outcome 2 and 3, be able to assess the technical and tactical ability of elite sports performer and be able to assess their own technical and tactical ability. And you can see that here is the criteria, but I'm going to take you inside the brief so that we understand what we need to do for each criteria. Okay, so task 1, it says you need to produce an observation checklist that identifies technical and tactical strengths and weaknesses in touch rugby. If you're Group D, then you'd need to do it for table tennis. You then need to use your checklist to assess a selected elite performer and your own performance. When you submit this, you should have one blank one that's not completed, and then you should have 2 other checklists, one that's completed on yourself and one that is completed on an elite performer. So I'll just show you something that I've designed here. So here's my checklist for rugby, and we can zoom in a bit closer if you can't see. Sorry. Okay, so I've got my technical checklist here, and I can do a tally. So I'm going to watch Paul Ashford play touch rugby, and then I'll watch him and I'll score his performance. So how many successful pop passes did he make, and I'll make a tally, and then I'll total them up at the end of the game. Unsuccessful pop passes, successful spin passes, etc. You can decide what's in this criteria, but there needs to be a significant amount to achieve the criteria. Okay, so here I've put some stuff: unsuccessful pop passes, successful pop passes, successful spin passes short, unsuccessful spins passes short, and then I've gone on and looked at touch tackles made, unsuccessful touch tackles made, handling, successful handling errors, successful step evasions, unsuccessful step evasions, and then I've looked at the tactical stuff here, which can be difficult to sometimes to tally, so you might have to make comments on it. So successful dummy runs made, unsuccessful dummy runs made, you could possibly tally that. Positioning is very difficult, so you might need to put some subjective stuff on there and then give a reason for why you would say their positioning is this certain score out of 10, and you'll see why I say that in a minute. Running lines and defensive positioning, again, these are difficult to actually tally. So you may want to have a subjective comment on those tactical areas of the game. Once you've completed that on yourself, you then are expected to go on YouTube, which is probably the best way to do it. Find an elite performer and watch them for a period of time. I'd say you'd need to watch them for a minimum of 20 minutes to get some decent data. So if I search this mixed touch rugby on YouTube, if you play it back, literally we can just watch that and use our tally against the elite performer we're watching. So in this case, we might want to watch number 8, who's just over here now. He's actually just gone off conveniently. So I'd be watching one performer and I'd be tallying the scores up using my checklist on that performer. If we go back to the brief, once we've done that, it makes sense to actually go back to our checklist and then go to the performance profile. So if we zoom out a little bit, it might make it easier to see. So we've got performance profile, we've got 8 areas, so we'll write the 8 areas that we want to look at around here. Probably 4 strengths, 4 areas for improvement, and shade them in. So it might be pop passes. We put pop passes here, and then we give them a score out of 10. We might put spin passes here, and we give them a score out of 10. We want obviously both technical and tactical elements on this wheel. So I may well consider doing 5 technical and 3 tactical, or maybe half and half, 4 and 4. Again, this is done for you and for the elite performer, so you should have 2 of these done. If we go back to the brief, okay, then we're looking at the merit criteria. So we're looking at this bit here. Okay, right. So in the form of a written report, you're going to use the results from the checklist to explain the strengths and the areas for improvement in the technical and tactical ability of the elite performer. Okay. In addition, in fact, before we go on to that bit, what we should be saying is why is it a strength and why is it an area for improvement. So you should be explaining why you've identified it as a strength and why you've identified it as an area for improvement in detail. I would suggest that you do something like 3 or 4 strengths and 3 or 4 areas for improvement. Then you're going to make a suggestion relating to the development of the elite performer. Okay, and you must, within the suggestions, you must make one a research training drill that you would want them to do to develop their area for improvement that you identified earlier. Okay, that's M2. If you want M3, which you need if you need an overall merit in this assignment, use the results from your checklist to explain your strengths and areas for improvement in your tactical and technical ability. On this, the difference between when you're doing yourself and you're explaining your strengths and areas for improvement is you don't have to make suggestions for improvement. You literally just talk about your strengths and areas for improvement. Again, you apply the same principle in the fact that you say why they are strengths and why these are areas for improvement within your game. Then we're going to move on to the distinction criteria, which is down here. Okay, so finally, justify development suggestions made for the elite performer regarding it for areas for improvement, and you must include 2 references to support your ideas on developments of skills or tactics. Okay, so when you're justifying, you're arguing for your ideas. So what areas of the elite performer's game will the suggestion you've made develop, and why will it develop them areas, and how will the development improve the performer's game? Why is the development important to the elite performer? What's it going to do for them? How is it going to be a benefit for future performances? How will it have an impact on their game or in-game play? So think about that. Okay, and that's the distinction criteria. Again, the distinction criteria is solely focused around the elite performer, not yourself, so be mindful of that. Okay, thank you.